Hey everybody, welcome back to Weaponized CAD. I'm your host Danny, and today we are talking about dimensions. We are picking up where we left off with our bat symbol. We just covered hatches, and in a previous episode, we were talking about text styles and dimension styles. Now, right now, all we need to do is check our text styles by typing style. All I want to look at right now is the font name as Arial. I need to set it to annotative. Paper space text height typically is 1/8 of an inch. And we leave everything else alone. Actually, that's the standard text style. Let's check the annotative text style. Annotative is still incorrect. Paper space text size, you typically want that to be 1/8 of an inch. You go back in there and double check. Annotative, 1/8 of an inch. And that just looks nice on full size, if whether you're doing 30 by 42 architectural, whether you're doing 24 by 36 civil, structural, piping, 1/8 of an inch text height based on the scale of the layout, which we haven't covered yet. That's going to be probably next. 1/8 of an inch works great. So set that to 1/8 of an inch, set this to annotative. Leave this unchecked. This is sketchy, and it's only used in certain cases. Right now, we don't want to use it. Match text orientation and layout. We don't want to touch that right now. So I already hit apply. I had to jump back into style to check it. I'm going to click cancel because that's done, and we're going to go into dim style now. In dim style, we want to look at our annotative dim style. We want that set to current. By double-clicking it or clicking the Set Current button, it's going to say Current Dimension Style Annotative. That's what we want. We want to click Modify. Most of this is going to be okay. After we get some dimensions in, we might want to tweak it. So we'll throw a couple dimensions in. If they look absolutely ridiculous, we're going to tweak them in here, and this is going to update any dimensions under the annotative style. Symbols and arrows, we're also not going to touch. Text, we want the text style to be annotative because that's the one that we just set. We told it to be annotative text. We told it to be 1/8 of an inch. I know we haven't covered annotation yet. Annotative scaling, all that stuff that's coming with the layouts, and it's going to continue from there. So I know this is we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but just stick with me. This is going to stick in your head, and you're going to remember it when we get to that point and go, oh, that's what he was talking about. The fit tab, we don't really need to touch anything here. The only thing we need to see is that annotative is checked here. Primary units, I'm going to change these to architectural with the precision of 1/16 of an inch. Fraction format, we want it as diagonal because it just looks nicer. You can keep it as horizontal or not stacked. Not stacked means that all the text, if you're typing out 3/16 of an inch, it's going to be full size 3, full size slash, full size 16, full size inch. If you click diagonal, it actually shrinks the 3/16 into a diagonal fraction, which I'll show you in a second. We can come back in here and change it so I can show you guys the horizontal fractions. Alternate units, I don't touch. Tolerances, I don't touch. So we're going to click OK. Make sure all of that is set. We're going to click Close. Okay, now, when we drew the bat symbol, if you'll remember way back when we inserted the bat symbol image, we did not know the scale of the bat symbol, and up until this moment, it didn't matter. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, if you've been following along with me, erase your hatch, E-enter, or E-space bar, and we want to unload our image. By typing image, we're going to right-click on it, and we're going to click unload. And we can now close the external references panel. Okay, to put in a dimension, you go to the Annotate tab, and right here under the Dimensions panel is the Dimension button. It's going to show you your current dimension style, and it's going to say use current layer. Layers we haven't touched yet either. This is all going to make sense once we bring it all together in one big video. So right now all I want to do is click dimension. It's going to ask me to select my annotation scale. Right now, our annotation scale is set to 1 to 1 because A, we don't know the size of this bat symbol, and B, we don't need it to be anything other than 1 to 1. Typically in the civil world, you draw everything 1 to 1. I can't speak for architectural because I have not been in the architectural realm in 20 plus years, and 20 years ago we did not have annotation scaling. So we had to draw everything to scale. If a wall was 8 inches wide, we drew it as 8/12 of a foot based on whatever the units were. We're going to leave this at 1 to 1 because right now in model space, this is the model space tab down here, we want to draw everything as 1 inch equals 1 inch, 1 foot equals 1 foot, 1 unit equals 1 unit. You can click don't show me this again. It really doesn't matter because you have the control down here. It's the same thing. I'm going to click don't show me again because I don't need to see that. I'm going to click OK. So now we've clicked dimension. It warned us about the annotation scale, and it's running the dim commands. Select objects or specify first extension line or origin, angular, baseline, continue, ordinate, align, distribute, layer, undo. Right now, we don't care about any of these added buttons down here. We just want to pick something to get a dimension in. Now you're going to notice, I'm going to zoom in, mouse wheel forward. When I get the mouse over an object, it's going to give me a preview of the dimension. This is 2 separate line segments here in this polyline, so it's going to break it up twice. Now, oftentimes you can get away with doing this by just mousing over it. And you say, you know what? Radius 3/4 of an inch, that's fine. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it away. Now in this case, it's giving me a ghosted line implying that radius. In most cases, you don't want that because if it's a mechanical design, it's going to confuse somebody. So the best thing to do is to pull the radius to the outside of the curve because it gets rid of that implied circle. So I'm going to pull out here and I'm just going to left click and we're back in the dimension command. Dim, select objects. So that radius is good. That radius is good. And all I'm doing is left clicking. Left click, pull it away. Let's do one of these. Left click, I'm going to pull it this way. Now, let's say I didn't want to dimension each individual segment here on this polyline. You can also use your O snaps. F3 turns on O snaps. I believe we still have it set to endpoint. So I'm going to pick this endpoint, and then you'll notice the dimension line is pivoting around your first point. And down in the command line, it's going to ask you for a second extension line or origin or undo. If I hit undo, it's just going to dump me back into the dim command. So if you misclick, you can undo out and still be in the dimension command. So I'm going to click that endpoint again, and I'm going to click this endpoint, and I'm going to pull straight down. Now to get out of the dim command, you can right click, or you can hit enter, or you can hit spacebar. So now that we've got a couple dimensions in here, we're going to notice that this bat symbol is actually not very big. This is 7/8 of an inch. And what I was saying before, this is 2 separate line segments that make up the top of his mask. So it wanted to dimension between these 2 endpoints and then between these 2 endpoints. And because we didn't want that, we wanted the entire dimension, we turned on our O snaps with F3, clicked this endpoint, and pulled it down. Now, dimensions are, you can get super deep into them, or you can just pop some in, move them to where you can see them, and you're good to go. With every dimension, if you select it, it doesn't matter where you select it, you're going to get grips. So you have your endpoint grips of what the dimension is actually attached to, and then you have endpoint grips on the ends of the arrowheads or the leader heads. that you can pull the dimension up and down. You can also grab the text and the text will move it. Now this is something that we can also change within the dim style command. So the text right now is moving the entire dimension with it. If I move the text to the inside, I have to turn my O-snaps off because I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see. There's actually an endpoint O-snap that's popping up right there that we do not want. So I'm going to turn my O-snaps off, F3. I'm in the middle of the command, F3. All the function keys work, inside, outside commands. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to drop that 7/8 dimension right in the middle there. Now, let's say that we didn't like that this dimension is pulling the entire thing up and down with it. Let's say we wanted this 7/8 of an inch to be pulled out and down with a leader like this. This is called a leader. This is your text. These are all your dim extensions and your arrowheads and everything that we set up in the dim style command. So let's go back into dim style. We're using the annotative dimension style, so we want to hit modify. And under the symbols and arrows, you can change your arrowheads. Say you're doing an architectural design. You're going to want to set it to architectural ticks. Let's set that just for fun. And let's shrink the arrow size down to 1/8 of an inch. Center marks, that's what this is right here. In some cases you need them. In most cases you don't. You have the option to turn them off. I'm going to turn mine off. Let's go to the Lines tab. Everything looks pretty good in there. Let's go to the Text tab. Okay. Text alignment. So like I was saying, I can't pull that out of the way. That's okay. The text alignment you can have set as horizontal, which places all the text plan readable horizontal. Plan readable is also rotated 90 degrees. So you only have to turn your plan clockwise 90 degrees to read everything that's vertical. You can set it aligned with dimension line. And you'll notice that your little preview up here changes. And I really wish they would make it so we could see more of this preview window. We can't. So let me check. Let me click back on horizontal. If I click aligned with dimension line, you're going to notice that the dimensions rotate based on the angle of the dimension itself. And I know it's ridiculously hard to see here. So ignore that for now. When I hit OK and close this, you're going to notice a big change. Text placement, vertical, horizontal, centered, view direction left to right. I don't typically touch any of this stuff. If we go to fit, the fit is where we are going to fix the dimension that's hiding underneath this window. So it gives you the option, fit the text or the arrows. It's not going to try to fit both if it can't. Because what will happen is the text will be smushed inside of your dimension and the arrows will be smushed into the text and it'll look ridiculous and it'll be hard to read. There will be lines on top of lines and you're going to get in trouble for that. So you don't want to change this almost ever. I don't think I've ever changed this. You can suppress the arrows if they don't fit inside the extension lines, but if they don't fit, the arrows automatically pop to the outside of the dimension. The text placement, when text is not in the default position, place it beside the dimension line, over the dimension line with a leader, or over the dimension line without a leader. So like I was saying, when we jumped into the dim style command, I want to click over dimension line with a leader. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to close. Now we notice that all of our dimensions change to the architectural tick. We don't have the center cross anymore. There's still going to be a point in there because this dimension needs something to attach to. And what it's doing is it's attaching itself to the center point of this arc. So that point, unfortunately, cannot go away. But we changed how the text is positioned. Watch what happens when I select the text and pull it away from the dimension. it automatically adds a leader and pops the text wherever you drop it. Now, if you're asking yourself, okay, cool, what do I do if I need to move the dimension? That's fine too. All that did was break the dimension into two pieces. So if you need to squish the dimension up, you can do that, and the text won't move until you move it. Now, if you get close to the dimension, it's going to squish it inside, and you're going to notice it trims the dimension out so the text fits nicely inside. But if you grab it and pull it away, it fixes the text break, adds a leader, and puts the text wherever you need it to be. And you'll also notice that the leader, this is a leader, flips sides based on where your text is being pulled. Let's see. Let's say we needed to scale this whole thing. Let's say 7/8 of an inch. Let's say we wanted this thing to be an inch. I'm going to cover this in the dimensions command, in the dimensions discussion. I need to discuss it in its own video, but just for kicks, we're going to scale this entire thing. I'm going to type SC. I'm going to window the entire thing. I'm actually going to deselect this by holding Shift and window selecting. It's actually the box for the image. If I were to reload the image, it would fall right inside that box. I don't want to scale the image right now. I just want to scale this information. So I selected everything. I right-clicked. It's going to ask me to specify base point. I'm going to pick the middle of this. Now look what happens. It will scale the object and all the annotative dimensions, because all of the annotative dimensions are also associative dimensions, which, if you remember in the boundary hatch video, we had the associative button that associated the hatch with the object that it was hatched inside of. Dimensions work the same way. They associate with the object that they're connected to. So if we had to scale this, scale it again. I'm going to pick this midpoint. You'll notice the dimension text is changing. 1/4 inch radius. Let me pan over. Let me zoom out. Radius 7/16, 1/2 inch, 9/16. So this is super helpful. If you're just drawing something like crazy and you don't have a scale yet, you're not sure how big you want it, how small you want it, you can still pop the dimensions in there. Now, with scaling this, it's going to maintain the text size that we set. And I know we haven't covered this yet, and this video is not meant to cover the annotation scale, but down in the bottom here, let's change this to 1:2. Boom. All of our text is now much more legible. So if I undo, you enter, I'm going to hit enter again. It's going to undo the annotation scale, undo it again, and it's going to undo the scale. Now, all the text is small because these buttons are clicked. And this needs to be its own video. The annotative objects needs to be its own video. But the reason that undoing back did not fix the size of the text is because this button right here is on. Add scales to annotative objects when the annotation scale changes. So what happened was, when we set this to 1:2, it added the 1:2 scale to all of the dimensions. So it already had the 1:1 scale, and now it has the 1:2 scale. So if I were to change this to 1:4, it's going to make them even bigger. If I change it back to 1:2, it's going to shrink them down. If I change it back to 1:1, it's going to squeeze them down even more. So that's dimensions in their simplest form. There are a million things you can do with dimensions. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. There's multi-leaders, which have their own style. So the dim style does not cover multi-leaders. I just got this question on Reddit like a day or two ago. Multi-leaders are these leaders, but they have the ability to add multiple endpoints, multiple arrow points So if this 1 3/4 of an inch dimension needed to point to 15 things, you have the option of either drawing 14 more liters or telling it, I need multiple liters. That's in the liters pane up here. We're not going to touch that right now. This was simply to show you how to throw a dimension in, how to make it look good, how to make it plan readable, how to make it so you can pull the text outside of the dimension, and how to change your arrowheads. And that's it, guys. Super simple, super quick. How to get some dimensions in there. If you have any questions, please ask. Jump onto YouTube. Jump onto my Facebook. I have a Weaponized CAD Facebook page. I have my YouTube page. I don't have enough subscribers that you can look it up by the URL. If you search Weaponized CAD, most of them should pop up right at the top. But if you've got questions, I am available to help you guys out. So thanks for coming. Like and subscribe if you learned anything, if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.